tässä on partierspel.
Olet sa harrastaja või võistled tipptasemel? Spordis sportast!
Il-kultura ta' sport nadif tfisser li l-sport huwa ġust u kompetittiv.
Ma jippermetti l-ebda lokal min jipprova jqarraq billi tejjeb l-abbiltajiet sportivi tiegħu permezz ta' sustanzi u metodi projbiti. Żommu l-sport nadif!
Šport brez dopinga pomeni,
Da so vsem tekmovalcem zagotovljeni enakovredni pogoji za uspeh. Da so športniki nagrajeni za svoje trdo delo, talent in sposobnosti.
Športniki spoštujejo šport kot vrednoto.
Da športniki spoštujejo in skrbijo za svoje telo in svoje zdravje. Da športnik spoštuje in upošteva protidopinška pravila.
Da razumejo pomen testiranja, ki na tak način ščiti čiste športnike in predvidi sankcije za tiste, ki goljufajo.
Ključen princip čistog sportskog uspjeha je zapamtiti da su sportaši neupitno odgovorni za sve što unose u svoje tijelo.
Nije bitno koriste li doping namjerno ili ne, ukoliko test na zabranjene supstance bude pozitivan, prijeti izbacivanje iz svijeta sporta zauvijek.
Clean sport is our mission. Athletes have the right to compete in sport knowing that they and their competitors are clean.
We, as anti-doping ambassadors,
Are here to spread the knowledge about dangers of doping among young athletes. And to create a generation of young athletes that are saying no to doping.
Okay, that was a short introduction video towards our next subject, doping. We're talking a lot about values here in Franja Academy, and one of those values in sport is, of course, fair play. And when we talk about fair play, then of course anti-doping is a very important subject. And we have here Janko Dvoršak, and he's head of Slovenian Anti-Doping Bureau. And I would like to give him the stage.
It works? Yes. Good morning. That was a short video instead of warming up, because it's necessary to kill the butterflies in my stomach before start. But anyway, the presentation before me about the volunteerism was excellent and great, and this is also a project based on the voluntary work of young athletes. I think it's no need to speak about doping in cycling, because it's full, media are full of doping in cycling. Everybody knows what is the problem. We know that on the yearly base, around the world, more than 300,000 samples are collected, tested, and only 1.5% of those samples are positive. That means the anti-doping program is not efficient. That means we spent a lot of money, but there's in this anti-doping program, but at the same time, at least 3 parts are quite important. Medical part, because scientific work is very important, and some people try to say that it's those who are doing doping are in front of us, 1, 2, 3 steps. That's somehow a little bit true. On the other hand side, we have to go through the disciplinary process with all those cases, and we have good lawyers and so on, but athletes on the other side have stronger and huge lawyer companies. And then it's a sport point of view as well, because we, as it was said before, fair play is the way how we have to compete. Then value-based education is definitely the way of the future, or is our future for the clean sport. We don't want to speak about doping because doping is negative, has a negative connotation. We have to speak about clean sport because 98% of athletes are clean. Only, as I said, only 1.5 are positive samples. That means all the rest are clean athletes, so we have to protect them. And how we can protect those clean athletes? Probably with only one way, with education, with the value-based education. Is the only way. That's why we start 5 years ago with the prevention work. Around the world, there is a lot of anti-doping organizations. Most of them are located within the international sport federations on one side. On the other side, we have national anti-doping organizations. Most of them are focused on testing program. With the new code, started with the 1st January 2015, there is an Article 18 which says that education is the basic athlete's right. So athletes have a right to be educated. And that's why we are 100% sure that the prevention work is the basic issue. Before I will talk about the project or the model, just a few words about the anti-doping organization, Slovenian anti-doping organization, or SLOADO, shortly. There is 7 areas we carry on a yearly basis. There is a testing program with about 400 to 500 samples. Almost half of them are initiated by the National Anti-Doping Organization. Therapeutic use exemption. There is about 20 applications on a yearly basis. Result management, 1 or 2 athletes are positive, so we have to go through the process of result management. Consulting to the law enforcement authorities, I mean police, customs, court and so on. Prevention programs. There is, you will see later on, there is some strong campaign based on the prevention work. Then you can follow us on not only on the web page sloado.si, but also in the social media on Facebook and Twitter. We are very strong because we are focused on the population between 15 and 20 years. Most of those young athletes using social media, so it's a good channel to communicate with them. And international projects, we were quite successful. Once in UNESCO, then and some 2 Erasmus projects. What is very special in Slovenia, our SLOADO is a private organization. It's not a public. Most anti-doping organizations within the Europe or within the European Union are public. That means founded by the government. Just few of them are private. We are 100% founded by the National Olympic Committee, Association of Sport Organization. That means sport decide to solve the problems with doping. So that's why they set up the National Anti-Doping Organization. It was 2 years ago, and we have only 1.5 employees. We are a small organization, but anyway, Also, our budget is 10 times smaller than the Austrian one, for example. But that's it. We try to negotiate with the sport authorities, with the governmental authorities, with the ministry to get more funds, but this is another story. I won't speak about that today. If we want to be successful in the field of doping prevention, we have to encourage athletes. First of all, to talk about clean sport. 5 years ago, nobody among our sport clubs, among sport federations, want to speak about doping. Doping was a taboo. They used some secret words for medical support or whatever. There is many words used by that, but nobody talk about doping. Share their opinion with their peers. That means they have to talk to each other about that problem and stand up for that, for what they believe. That means they have to work, they have to speak, they have to cooperate. Doping is a subject that many people don't want to talk about, and we are definitely sure that peer networking is a suitable method for such a topic. As I said, 5 years ago, we started as a partner within the EADIN project. It was actually the first European project financed anti-doping issue, and EADIN means European Anti-Doping Initiative. We were one of the partners. There were 8 partners, and at that time the basic idea was to create a team of ambassadors. I have to say that only Slovenian team make a progress from that time, and we developed this ambassadors work. That means on 2013 we were founded by the UNESCO Fund for Elimination of Doping in Sport, and we upgraded this project on the national level. It was a great experience. You will see later on why. And last year, or at the end of 2014, we applied also for Erasmus Plus program. They received more than 600 projects, and only 20 were eligible, and among those 20, only 2 projects were financed by... They were focused on anti-doping issues, and they were financed. So we are in the second year. We plan our final event in October with preparing the final model of peer education. In this Erasmus project, we have 5 partners. This is Estonian Anti-Doping Organization, Croatian, Latvian organization from Malta, and then is also a co-partner in INADO. INADO means Institute for National Anti-Doping Organization. That is actually Association of National Anti-Doping Organization. It was founded 3 years ago and now have already 60 members. And we also have an international observer nominated by the Deutsche Sportjugend from Germany. Professor Gerhard Trondlein, let's say a legend on prevention work in anti-doping. Overall idea of peer networking model is to recruit and to train anti-doping ambassadors, actually to recruit and train young athletes. Sport background it's not necessary, but it's a huge advantage. And because we would like to develop and shape a network of young athletes that believe in a sound mind, in a healthy body, and to reject all things or whatever about the doping. I think that it's very important that we start in a very, let's say, young age. We are mostly starting with the 14, 15 years old athletes, and they have to be treated 3, 4, 5 years, and I believe that we can influence on their opinion. Because afterwards, if you try to work with the athletes older than 20, 25 years, it's too late, because they are already grown, and they exactly know what they are doing. This prevention model involves only young athletes. Enable young athletes to talk about topics they normally don't want to discuss. It is a voluntary-based project and program as well. It is a low budget, and I'm sure that any organization can do it. It is very important we did this a presentation to many other national anti-doping organizations within the Europe, and I think it's not only the case that anti-doping organizations have to do this work. Now, each sport organization can do that, especially national sport federations, and this is the focus to where we have to go. How does it work? There is three steps to collect anti-doping knowledge. It's not a big deal because it's collected within the WADA materials. On WADA page you find everything. Code, international standard for testing, investigation, laboratories, therapeutic use exemption, privacy, and a list of prohibited substances. So all those knowledge have to be transferred to the ambassadors, and then ambassadors target the groups of young grassroots level sports. That is peer-to-peer networking somehow. How it works how the idea of prevention work spread the knowledge. These ambassadors, there is absolutely general public and sports public, because they are active and they are working on different levels and different events and so on. Then we are sending them, or their work in the project among the primary school students and secondary school students. So we are going to the school, we are going to the gymnasiums and have lessons there with the athletes. There is two competition system. The first, school sports competitions. They are present there and they make, or they are preparing or running the presentations, and junior sport teams. So that means we send ambassadors to final preparations of national teams for youth in different sports. We don't skip the mass events. You will see on Saturday, we will also present on the marathon Franja on Saturday, not on Sunday, on Saturday, because on the Saturday is, let's say, the population much more interested for us. And of course, at the last, but not least, teachers, parents and coaches. It was 10th of April, that means almost 2 months ago, at the same place, we organized a seminar for the coaches. We went through the ministry and through the local authorities, and that means we find a way how to motivate the coaches to come here for the seminar. And we have 185 coaches at the seminar talking only about anti-doping issues. It was a great success for us and for them, and we got quite not so nice feedbacks, because the knowledge of the coaches was really low. 60-70% of the coaches could not manage the anti-doping process or sample collections process because they are not familiar with. They don't know how to apply for therapeutic use exemptions. And this is, all those steps are very crucial for the athletes' rights, because coaches behind the athletes are those who have to encourage athletes, who have knowledge, who have to educate athletes as well. So a lot of things which have to be done, and ambassadors are definitely the way how to touch also teachers, parents and coaches. when you are applying for the Erasmus project, you have to approve some initiatives and some new innovative aspects, and this is few of them: targeting, knowledge transfer, opportunity for retired athletes. Maybe some words about that. You know that when the athletes finish their career about 18, 20, 21, 22 years old, that there are some reasons for that, or if they are injured, or they decide that maybe some other interesting issues could be for them as well, so they decide, but at the same time they would like to stay in sport. And this is a nice opportunity to be anti-doping ambassadors. That means working with the athletes, be present at the sport competition events and so on. Peer-to-peer networking, I mentioned it, and anti-doping education, prevention, medicine. That means all educational work is actually prevention in a medical way. So that's why this innovative axis was interesting for the Erasmus. How to carry out such a model in prevention? I will go through these 5 steps, slide by slide, and to be more clear how this model of prevention will or have to work. Analysis of the current situation in the country is necessary, especially on this environment. We are talking about the sport environment and school environment. I mentioned both, but it's important. We have to also see if there are any current doping prevention programs run already in the country. It's very easy in Slovenia because we are small and we know each other, and we exactly know if some programs already on the stage or not. So it's not a problem. And then it's financial and human resources. It's also things which have to be managed in advance, and we have to know the resources. But as I said at the beginning, it's a low budget project anyway. Long-term planning, setting objectives and desired outcomes. It's also an issue. We have to know that the recruitment will take at least 3 to 6 months. Overall plan is 3 to 5 years in advance. So most of the ambassadors or the athletes are students. That means nowadays the study is quite demanding, and athletes and students don't have enough time for doing this job. But anyway, this is the only way to get guys and girls who will voluntarily work on this project. Target groups. Identifying how to reach young athletes, absolutely through the national sport federations, or through schools, sport clubs, sport events, over social media. How to collect them. I will talk about it later. General objective, conditions for clean sport, yeah. Immediate objectives, ambassadors, recruitment, educational materials, prevention. All those stuffs have to be done in advance and prepared for the project. And outcomes. At the end, I will start here. Behavior change. I hope that we will change the behavior of the athletes, because it is actually the most important aim. So, because the opposite of that is doping mentality. When you have a 5-year-old kid, he's injured, or maybe he has a headache or whatever, and mom comes and gives him an aspirin, or let's say, or whatever. So that starts to make a kind of mentality. If something goes wrong, you have to take a medicine, or you have to take a pill, I don't know, whatever. In that way, that means doping mentality. So we have to go against that. We have to change the behavior. Some basic criteria. Of course, you have to go through the publication of positions, but basic criteria. We select only athletes between 18 and 23. Topics is quite demanding, so they have to understand, especially those how doping can influence on the public or athletes' health, how can damage it, and so on and so on. So we need ambassadors at least 18 years old. Sport background is absolutely a huge challenge, because if they understand the sport, it's much easier for them to do their work. Communication and presentation skills, yeah, we train them on that issue because it's very important, and at the same time it's an excellent opportunity to train that communication and presentation skills, because it's not so usual that a guy with 18 years have an opportunity to have a presentations in front of the 50 athletes in a sport hall or in the conference hall, doesn't matter, but it's developed his own personality, understanding of management and teamwork. We create a team. We spent a lot of time and a lot of efforts on team building. Otherwise, only if they work as a team, the results are much better. Motivation and willingness to work voluntary. Yeah, they are voluntary. All those work is not paid. We pay only costs, because there is a lot of traveling around the country, and they got some pocket money. Let's say it's not 100% voluntary work, but only this pocket money means, I don't know, 15 euros per day if you spend the whole day on that occasion. And don't do that without the individual interviews. You have to have an interview with each candidate. Where to find the candidates and how many to choose. Both questions are interesting. But anyway, when you are working on the national level, is the proper way if you go through the national sport federations. It should be the right way, but unfortunately it is unsuccessful way, because national sport federations are not interested for that. They are too busy with other issues. They have to survive. They have to find a lot of financial issues for the competitions, for organizing everything, whatever. So this is a problem. Anyway, we send emails to federations. We even have a informative meeting for the federations. But if we could not get ambassadors from the federations, we can go to the university, to the sports faculty, to the high schools with the sport departments, as we have here in Slovenia. We go through the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and through the personal contact to collect, to find candidates. Of course, number of candidates depends on each organization's needs and doping prevention program plans. So, according to the possibilities. Ambassadors training. You have to invest. This is investment. This is investment in youth. This is investment in knowledge. So we organized a training camp for 5 days somewhere in Slovenia. Planica, for example. Everybody knows Planica as ski jumping, El Dorado or whatever. Now it's really nice. Or we went to Portorož, doesn't matter. But it is a training camp on one place, and we spent with them 5 days. Theoretical lectures and practical workshops. All important topics of fight against doping, court article. I talked about Article 18 of World Anti-Doping Codes. We also invite, let's say, worldwide important or famous people about doping practice from the past. Then I mentioned already team building. It's very important for those. We took them at the last camp, we took them to Planica, to the flying hill, 250 meters, and there is a zip line, and it was an excellent experience for everybody, because it's really, I think it's one of the biggest one in the world, but doesn't matter. Physiological, ethical, philosophical aspects, doesn't matter, sorry for that. For drug abuse, interesting, special philosophers. You know, they always find a way, and they are always against us. I don't know why, but this is nice, and that means they have to get information also from the other side, and it's very interesting for the young athletes, discussing with the philosophers and fighting with them. And this is many times the case. Then examples of different programs for prevention and awareness-raising activities together, targeting different participants at grassroots level sport. So, if you ask Uncle Google, you can get all those materials, and it's easy. And then you can use all those examples from different countries, different continents, and it's quite an interesting mixture of different approaches. Exercises for communication management and group management skills. I told you before, because all those work on the communication is really crucial for the future work. And of course, we prepared also a handbook for the ambassadors. Training, some useful points. Keep the lecture short and interesting. Include as many workshops as possible and other interactive methods. Then invite some athletes to share their own stories. So there's round tables in the evening with the very top level athletes, Slovenian athletes, Olympic medalists. It's always an interesting discussion. Organize a team building, and don't forget to give ambassadors some free time to hang out. So they need a time also from themselves to become friends. A few months after the educational camp, we organized additional 2-day seminar. This is actually some, how can I say, remember meeting, to go through the topics once more, and maybe this is an opportunity to enlarge the group of ambassadors, so on. And this is actually additional training, and they are interested to get more information about. When they are ready to work as an ambassador, there is some replies, some feedback we got from them, and most of them are ready. It's important that they start slowly, step by step. Don't push them into the huge audience, or maybe too different or too difficult audience at the beginning. All those ambassadors, we prepared the plan for the whole year, what they have to do, what kind of activities have to be performed. But anyway, it's about carry out about at least 20 prevention activities in the first year. Now we have more than 70 this year already for athletes in high schools. I don't know how it's in your countries, but we have gymnasiums. So this is our language, gymnasia, but it's a high school. And we have in 22 high schools special sport classes. That means that it's a class with around 20 students in one class, and they are sport oriented. So that means that the school helps them to go through the educational program, and at the same time they have time also to train with their coaches and federations. So I'm talking about the athletes in those high schools. For junior athletes in sport clubs and national teams, it was mentioned before. and social media, and try to involve media as much as possible, of course. This is our prevention activities. It is supported by different materials. We are using Prezi because it's more interesting. It's not so often used. Everybody uses PowerPoint, but Prezi is more dynamic, and we let's say more motivate the athletes. And I mentioned the handbook. There is some, for example, a signage board where an athlete could sign themselves and so on. Implementation of prevention activities. As I said, ambassadors should carry out activities for athletes at grassroots level sports. At the beginning, they are not prepared for more demanding audience, and we never sent less than 3 ambassadors at each activity, because it's important that if they have to work at least 2 in a couple or 3 of them. It's more dynamic, and even if they receive some difficult questions, it's much easier for them to answer in a group or if they are alone.